Hi everyone, welcome back. Let's begin by writing a new human story together. All right, so today I'm going to speak about something that I feel that humanity is waking up. I see it, it's very clear to me, and I want to help and understand that the awakening in a way that feels grounded, empowering, and real. Not dramatic, not fear-based, and not about escaping life. Because I see a lot of people, oh, we're going into the awakening, therefore we're going to a higher dimension. And that's really all personal, this higher dimension. It depends, again, on yourself, on your alignment, and on your frequency. So I'm not going to talk about that. I think that's an individual basis, like how you take your own frequency and elevate that. I'm talking about right now, today. We're here, we're living, and we're all together in this worldly, earthly realm. So really, it's becoming more alive inside of life. That's how I look at it. And because the more clarity we have, the more we can actually participate in the shift with an intention. And that's how I look at it. So let's begin and start right there. Because the word awakening, it gets thrown around a lot. And to me, awakening is really not a trend, and it's kind of shifted into a trend. It's not a label. It's not something you join. It's something within. The awakening is when you begin to see more clearly what's true inside you. What's been conditioning you? What you've been repeating on a unconscious level. Like, what are you doing unconsciously? And what you're capable of becoming. And the most important point is this: awakening is not a feeling, it's a process. It has stages. Each day is a new stage, I think. And it requires responsibility, and it asks something of all of us. This isn't about escaping the world. It's not about escaping this world. And this is how I'm looking at it. And I want to say this clearly because I think it's important. But I think many people maybe are misunderstanding awakening. Some people think awakening means you leave Earth. I don't know. Maybe you do, and I don't know. But I'm not looking at it that way because I'm alive and I have this avatar body that has, I don't want to say limits because I don't believe in limits in my consciousness and my mindset. But as far as our atmosphere and gravity and what have you. So some people believe that awakening means you go to another dimension, like I said before, or you float above human life, or you transcend the messy parts of being human, which we do that ourselves. We have to take accountability and responsibility to do that ourselves. But will there be some big change where all of us make that? I don't know. So I'm not going to go off of that part. I'm going to stick to what we can do on an individual basis, what each human being needs to be responsible for themselves. But I don't believe that really, like what I just mentioned. This is how I'm looking at it, and I believe the awakening is about the now. right now with this body, this mind I have, this consciousness I have, and the way that the world is right now today. The present moment, the human life, this human life, and this earth. That's how I'm looking at it. And awakening to me is not leaving the earth, the world. It's becoming a different kind of human within it. And that's what I believe, and that's how I'm looking at it, and that's what I want to share. It's more aware. It's more loving. It's more honest. It's more responsibility for yourself, too. More awake to what you are creating. And awakening is not passive, because awakening isn't something that just happens to you. It's something you practice. It has to be practiced. You just can't wake up and, I mean, you can. I mean, I'm not telling you can't. I never want to be a dream killer. But I think it's a participation. Okay, first with yourself, and then when you interact with others. That's how I'm looking at it, and that is practice. And the part we don't talk about enough is we plan everything in our life. We do. Our health, our careers, our finances, our future, but almost no one plans for who they are becoming on the inside. I mean, we think about it, but then we end up, the day gets going. We all know that. We get lost within the noise and things we have to get done, goals, what have you. But what are we becoming while doing all that? So the question becomes, if you don't consciously shape your inner life, what are you shaping? What is shaping it for you? That's something very important to look at. What is shaping it for you if you're not shaping it yourself? Could it be fear, trauma, media, systems that benefit from you staying unconscious? That happens. And that's where this gets real for me. So, because if you don't choose your inner direction, you will drift, and the drifting doesn't make you bad. It doesn't make you bad, because sometimes we do that. We drift a little bit and then we come back to center, right? We go from right to left hemisphere and then we come back to the center. So it just means you're being shaped by whatever is the loudest around you. And this has happened to me, many times. And awakening is deciding I'm not going to drift. I'm not drifting anymore. I mean, there's nothing wrong with drifting. Sometimes, like when I'm gardening, I drift off. That's probably my most meditative. I meditate more when I'm gardening than anything else. So, and I drift. And I get ideas and creative, things that make me feel good. So, and then awakening as a path and not a belief. That's another thing that I want to mention. And here's another thing that I want to clarify, is that awakening is not a belief system. It's not about adopting a new spiritual language or spiritual aesthetics. Because like when I went to India, and I like to tell this, I'm going to say it really quick, but I went because I thought by going, I would be more enlightened. And okay, that's okay. But in a lot of ways, did I become more enlightened? No, I had an experience, which was beautiful, but did I become more enlightened? No, because that is something that you do on the inside. Now, can you become more enlightened by visiting, an ashram and doing that? Yes, maybe. And, oh, excuse me. And you can, but really it's about alignment between your actions, your values, and your conscious. And your deeper knowing. I did walk away with a deeper knowing about things I never thought about and people I met from all over the world. So that was one thing. But it isn't always about adopting, a new spiritual, like you go study Kabbalah. I did that with Dr. Teresa Ballard on Gaia, and it was wonderful. And I wrote a Substack on it, and I still have it up on my Substack at Susanna von Hoover. I think it's that name. And but it was wonderful, and I wanted to know what it was all about, because everybody was wearing the red string and people were saying how wonderful it was. So I said, well, let me dive into it and let me see what it's about. So I studied it, and it was fine. But once again, it's not about a belief system. It truly, I believe, this is my opinion, it's about alignment. And that alignment changes how you live, not just what you think. So instead of asking, what do I believe? Awakening asks this: how am I living? How am I embodying? How am I choosing? How am I reinforcing? How am I becoming? And that's where the real transformation happens. That's my opinion. And then here's a concept that I think is very helpful. And because awakening comes in stages. It's not like, boom, you're going to go to the ashram in India and all of a sudden you're going to be a different person. And, the whole awakening experience, you're going to walk out as becoming more wise, with more wisdom. But that's not how it works. You'll come with some experience, of course, but, that's all on an individual basis. Everybody walks away from the ashram or going to India differently. That's what I've seen. And not stages like better than or worse than, stages like development, just like learning to walk, learning to read, learning emotional maturity, learning leadership, learning mastery of self. That's really the truth. And it's a progression, because who I was 30 years ago to who I am today, I've gone through so many different stages, and I've become more wise. And if there are stages, then there is something else too. And there is a map. And I believe this with all my heart. Not a perfect map, not one size fits all, but a pattern, a pathway. And if there is a pathway, that means there's something very hopeful within you. And you have to figure that out. And you can train for it. That's what I did with pattern recognition. I started training early on. And you have to practice it. That's another. You have to, you read a book, let's say you read a self-help book, okay? But then you have to put that into practice. You just can't keep filtering more ideas into your system and then you don't practice it. So practicing it to me is key. And you can strengthen your inner muscles, your brain, when you practice. It's required to live awake in this world, right? That's how I look at it. And then there's symbols. And now let me explain this part, because I think it's important, because the world is run. I mean, you can look around, there's symbols everywhere. And this part is a way that actually makes sense. Why do ancient stories matter? Why do symbols matter? Because stories and symbols are a language the human mind understands deeply. Whether or not you acknowledge this fact, you're always operating on it, whether you know it or not. Even when we can't explain why, we're operating in that way. So think about it like this. A story is like a mirror. It reflects a pattern of human experience. A symbol is like a compressed message, and it holds meaning in a single image the way a seed holds an entire tree. That little seed grew into a big tree, and it holds it. So when we look at stories and symbols, we're not always looking for the facts. We're looking for the patterns. Because patterns teach us, just like if you read the Bible, there's a lot in it about how man is. And the patterns we see in powerful stories are often the same patterns we live through in real life. It's like watching a movie, some people will relate to the movie and it's like, wow, I really get that. And that's why this all matters. And so when I say stories and symbols are helpful, I mean this, that they give the mind a way to understand transformation without needing a textbook. It's kind of like they give you a way to recognize. That pattern will give you, you'll be able to recognize. Like sometimes when you meet, maybe I shouldn't say that. I was going to say sometimes when you meet somebody and it's not right, there's like a pattern and you see it. And you go, well, I'm going to bypass. Or it could be a scenario or a job interview. You go for the job interview, really hyped up. I remember a lot when I was younger. And I would go for the job interview. And then it was nothing that I thought it would be, because I asked a lot of questions. What are the details? What do you expect from me? Blah, 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 blah. And I knew then, I saw a pattern. I thought to myself, okay, this isn't going to work for me, right? So the soul recognizes that, right? And I'm not in that part. Your soul says, I'm not in that part of a journey yet. And then you say that you get called back. We want to hire you. And then you end up, saying, I said I got another job, but I didn't. But, you just bypass it. So, and that's why I love this one line that I heard. And it goes like this. Stories don't tell us what to think. They show us patterns of transformation. In its initiation, and this is important, it shows collapse. It shows humility. It shows integration and return. It's like it's a pattern. There's a loop. And let me translate that into everyday life so you can understand it. Initiation. This is something that begins. That's what initiation means. It doesn't mean, a lot of people, oh my God, that's cult-like. No, not at all. Look it up. What does a word mean? It means to begin or to start. And it's a calling and a disruption, a new awareness. That's what it means. It's very important to not get hung up on, what you heard in the past. Maybe you believe something. Oh my God, initiation. That's the, I don't know, those groups, the, I don't know, the I forget what they're called, but people, oh, you have to be initiated to get into the group. No. I'm not talking about that. And then there's a collapse. What wasn't true falls apart in your life. It's an illusion. It's a crack. Old identity dies. You need that in your life. And you see that in movies, and you see that when you read the Bible. This is all in the Bible. This is where I got everything. And there's something to learn from these ancient writings. And then there's humility. And you stop pretending. You face yourself. That's what you do. You surrender to ego. I know people say, oh, there's, ego could be good, and you need ego. Okay, yes, you need some of it, not to clobber other people, or, that's not nice. And then there's integration. You rebuild from truth. You become coherent. You embody change. We're doing this all the time. And then return. You come back into life wiser, not above people, but of service to people. So those, to me, initiation, collapse, humility, integration, and return is a cycle of awakening. And this is what we're doing constantly. And I believe in this so much, because when you understand this, and it's going to be in my book, and I go more in depth on it, the mythology stops being superstitious. Because if you can be true to yourself and recognize how you live your life, and that you go through those 5 stages for the awakening, and they change all the time, then you understand yourself, and it starts becoming psychology of the soul for your awakening, for whatever you want to call, to become more aware, to awake, right? And it's not a destination, because there is nothing to get to an end. If you get to the end, then you're dead. That's how I look at it, right? You're dead. That's the only singularity that I can understand. The singularity that they're talking about, I don't understand it, because, the way that the world and the construct works, I don't know how singularity could work, because we're all individuals with free will. So I envision singularity as, once we leave this avatar body, we become one with the source. That's singularity to me. That's the only singularity I know. Maybe I'm not looking at what, the other people are talking about. I tried looking at it to understand it, but I couldn't wrap my head around it. So maybe, I need to, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to second guess myself, but it's kind of interesting. So meaning these are not just old tales, right? And this is how I look at it, is that they're maps of the inner of your inner self changing constantly. Not a literal history, but and not even scientific proof. Because remember, the Bible was written, by man, and they were some people say it was non-human intelligence that wrote it. But I don't know. That's another. I'm going to do another video on that. But as maps, that's the way I take it. I look at that as a map. Now, just because I believe it doesn't make it true, though. You have to remind yourself of that always. Because if you believe with, and you're not open to being open to hearing other things, then you're going to be kind of hardwired in that one belief and you might miss something. So I always believe in keeping things open. But I mean, you can have a hardwired belief, faith. That's hardwired for me. I am very faithful and loyal. I have a high loyalty, which sometimes hurts me. A lot of people always say you're too loyal, but I mean, this is the way that I am. Yes, I get hurt because, I expect if I'm loyal, that they will be loyal back, but it doesn't always work that way. So, and another line that I want to say that I think is important is that these stories are not just history or religion. They're mind maps for what human soul can become. That's what makes this powerful. That's how I look at it. We do have a map inside of us, but you have to find it and you have to recognize it. And I want to talk about something that's, I believe, I want to say it in a way that, I don't want to say it too plainly, but I think it's so important. And this is your higher self, that people do not understand, that you have a higher self. You don't need to imagine angels or light beings. You can if you want, okay? Of course you can, but you don't need to understand this truth. And there is a wiser version of you, a calmer version of you, and a more honest version inside of you. And awakening is learning to listen to that. You've got to have the noise out and take that in and listen for that wiser, calmer, honest version that is already inside you. You're not broken, and you don't have to, go find it. You have to be calm and listen, and it's right there within you. That's the beauty about all this, is that the awakening is learning to listen to that instead of being reactive, fearful, and your conditioned self, because we get conditioned over and over and over, and we all have. So I've done it and become conditioned and stop listening to the wiser, calmer self inside of me. So, and that's not mystical. That's maturity to do that. And maturity leads to being wiser. So you can feel this in your heart, in your whole body, when you stop and listen to the inside. And because there's always a moment where you have a choice. Every second, in a lot of ways, we're making choices all the time. That's what I'm realizing. Like when I started to write when I'm writing my book, there's like I was writing, about choices. And I've realized that, I mean, for me, and I'm sure other people are maybe, like big CEOs, they're always making choices, right? And you have this when you make the choice. You can react or you can respond. You can defend your ego or you can tell the truth. You can numb out. I've done that before where it's like, ooh. Or you can stay present. So, and that higher self is often just part of you that can pause, see clearly, and choose what's right. That's your higher self. And you want to tap into that. You want to start practicing tapping into that. So when you start reacting, remember, stop it and tell yourself inside, you talk to yourself and you say, I'm not going to react. I'm going to stay calm. Not going to do it. Even though they said something that irritates me, I'm not doing it. And the more you practice that, the more awake you become. And now this part I love because I think it's important and it helps keep awakening, grounded, and strong. But sometimes spiritual conversations use words from science like quantum particles, informations, and things like that, right? And I want to be very simple about this because sometimes, people don't even know what quantum is, but it's okay to use science words as metaphors, but we should know something when we're speaking in metaphor and when we're making literal claims, because metaphor is powerful. It is, but it's not something as proof, right? That's how I look at it. And we don't need proof for something to be meaningful. We don't. And I think people get lost in that. The science and the proof, right? And symbolic truth to me can be deeply powerful because it speaks to your inner life and your values and your consciousness and your direction, your choices. So I don't get stuck on taking everything literally. Because I try to stay open to it, but I do take direction seriously. Meaning this, if a teaching helps you become more loving, more coherent, more responsible, more awake, it's a valuable, and that's what I look at. That's why I wanted to take Teresa's class, Dr. Teresa Ballard, on Gaia. And if you haven't joined up on Gaia, it is very good. So that's kind of something that I always like to throw out there. And I took the Kabbalah because I wanted to know what it was about, because everybody, was into it, and what is it of value? That's what I said to myself. So, and it is. Now, do I practice it? No, I don't. I haven't, because I do something else, and I pray a lot, and I do some other things with, Jesus Christ and with God source. So that's where my don't want to say loyalty, but in some ways, yes, loyalty, I would have to probably say. My faith, let's say that. That's best. That's the highest form. My faith is in that. Now, I'm open to, the scientific facts, definitely. Sometimes I search for that. I say to myself, I don't want to hold back from scientific facts because, I also want to hear what other people say. And that's how we keep this positive and grounded and strong. That's how I look at it. And I want to talk about something that William Henry talked about, and it's the cosmic egg. And I thought that this was a really important part to bring into this speak, because it nails it. And this is one of my favorite presentations that he did. And I'm gonna explain it in my own words, but this is by William Henry, and he's on Gaia too. And it was a major theme in his storytelling. So here's the grounded way to understand it. It's not word for word from him, but this is how I put it and made sense of it, let's say. Something is alive. If you look at the cosmic egg, it's something that's alive, right? Because there's something inside of that egg. It's something developing inside of that cosmic egg, and something not yet expressed. And that's who we are. We are the cosmic egg. And to say you are a cosmic egg simply means this: you are not finished. You never will be. That's why there's no destination. Don't look at destinations. I remember back in the day, still people talk about it. Everything was about it getting to the destination. And now I see that was a bunch of horse shit. Okay, yeah, a goal. You want to lose 30 pounds. Okay. If you want to look at it as a destination, but a goal, but your life is not a destination. And then also, you're carrying more than you're currently living. That's what the cosmic egg symbolizes. The cosmic age symbolizes you are carrying more than you're currently living. Think about that for a moment. So you're not finished. And awakening is the cracking of what confines you. That's like fear, false identity, unconscious patterns. So something truer can emerge. And it's beautiful. That's why we're always discovering ourselves as new. And I think it's so beautiful. And now I want to add a deeper layer that I actually love. And the cosmic egg represents the soul in its unhatched form, meaning you are carrying more potential than you are living. You are carrying a future you. Think about that. You're carrying a future you that hasn't emerged yet. Maybe it's emerging now, and it's beginning to crack, right? And the awakening is the hatching. It's the cracking of the shell. The ignorance, the numbness, the false identity, the fear of inherited programming too. And what emerges is not perfection, it's integration. Because it's not, don't be, like when I say this, like fear and numbness and ignorance and your false identity, This isn't something to be ashamed of. This is us. You guys. We're in this life to discover who we are, who we want to, what we want to create, right? So it's a beautiful thing. And the more coherent a human is, I mean, think about it. The more loving a human is, the more conscious a human is, that's a beautiful message. Because it doesn't demand that you become some impossible being overnight. You know, people are just racking their brain, just, blah, you know. No, there's no race, competition. There isn't. It's something in you that is developing. And your job is to stop living in a way that keeps it trapped. That's why if you've been trained in like a lot of the government jobs, like you can just see the people who went to Gothic City, New York City, and trained in these programs in the FBI and with no windows and stuff like that. They all say the same thing, and they're all influencers, and you know, which is fine and everything, but they have the same rhetoric, and they're really confined in their belief systems, and they haven't yet cracked, even began hatching. And it's something to really understand that, because I see a lot of that institution trapped, and they need a new program. They need to be trained differently, because it would help humanity. That's what I believe. And another thing is, I always see that awakening people are talking about escaping it. We're not going to escape anything. We're not going to escape this life. If you want to escape it by taking, you know, ayahuasca or whatever that stuff's called, a lot of people do that. I don't like that kind of stuff. I don't feel like I have to. I don't want to escape. And I don't want that experience. I want this. This is enough. There's so much to do here. And I think this is crucial, because awakening is not leaving the world, and that's what that drug does. It takes you outside, which is fine. If people want to do it, I'm not criticizing it. They have free will to take that drug and do it. But it's not floating above anything, right? Because we're not going to leave the world. When you're alive, we're alive. And it's becoming someone who can, 1, hold more truth, 2, act with more integrity, love without collapsing. You know, you get hurt and then you think, oh God, I'm never going to love again. But you can't collapse from being hurt, right? You have to live life and see clearly without hatred. Even when someone tries to burn you like a son of a gun, you got to let go. Yeah. And that's not spiritual bypassing. That's evolution. That's how you evolve. Each take the responsibility on. It's your evolution, this cosmic egg. It's you. And no one else is responsible for it but you. And that's how I look at it. And to add one more thing, if your awakening makes you less kind, less grounded, more superior, I'm better than, more detached from real human life, that's not awakening. And I mean, you could do what you want, but awakening makes you more human. It does. It makes you feel more. You have emotions, and it's not less. It's more present, right? It's more responsibility. It's more loving. And that's how I look at it. So what does this mean for humanity? And I think humanity is being pushed not to become perfect, but to become coherent. That's what I see right now. That is something that I've really, if you haven't listened to any of my videos in the past, I've said I have trained myself in pattern recognition, and I think I'm very good with humanity and people in that way. Like I can pretty much recognize patterns if I study a scenario or a person or a construct, like even government. I've studied that, and kind of the pattern and the map that is happening. And so I believe we are to become more coherent, and I see it happening. People are. And to stop living split, to split, like split between what we say and what we do, what we believe and how we treat people, what we claim spiritually, and what we embody physically. And the future, in my opinion, belongs to the people who can do two things at once: stay loving and stay honest. Stay honest. Because love without honesty becomes illusion. And honesty without love becomes cruelty. It does. Awakening is the integration of both of those. And that's why I believe this is an air. This air is calling something out of us. And it's calling not for fear, not for panic, but for maturity, for inner strength, for a new standard of human being. And I'll say it like this: we don't awaken alone. We're in this together. Now, you take responsibility for self, 100%. 100%, you have to take responsibility. But we awaken through how we treat each other, how we parent, how we lead, how we speak truth, not BS, how we repair when we break, because that's part of life. It just is. And how we stop blaming and start becoming. That's awakening, not fantasy. And it's a lived human evolution. Each one of us are in this human evolution, and our part is to evolve. So thank you for being here with me. And if you like, subscribe, and press the like button. And together we're writing a new human story. So I'll see you on the next one. Thanks a lot, everybody. I love you. Bye-bye.